Hello and welcome everyone to True Tuesdays. My name is Amy Gray. I'm the Education and Community Programs Manager at the New Children's Museum. So excited for today's topic, easing transitions, mindfulness in uncertain times, and very genuinely excited to welcome our guest presenters, Debbie Zeichner, licensed social worker, and Corie Wightlin, Masters of Education, both who are wonderful resources in themselves, but also created a wonderful resource called Mindfully Empowered. And I'm excited to kind of pass the mic to them in a moment, but before that, I just want to cover a few quick housekeeping points. Corie, if you don't mind just forwarding the slide once, great. So this session is being recorded. And if you are unable to join us for the entire presentation, please know that it will be made available on the museum's website within a couple of days. Also, we would love to know who's joined us today, so please use the chat room to introduce yourselves. If you have questions along the way, feel free to send them through that avenue as well. I know that Debbie and Corie are planning to do a little bit of discussion throughout the presentation, so you're welcome to offer your thoughts and share through that resource also. At the end of this presentation, I know that Corie and Debbie will offer their contact information, so that if you want to stay connected with them and continue the conversation, you can do so. We also hope you'll want to stay connected with the museum. You can reach out to us to find out about future True Tuesday programs or to follow up on today's topic by reaching out to education@thinkplaycreate.org. We'll remind you again of that at the end of the presentation. And we just hope that you are excited about the topic today, that you are here and know that you're surrounded by those who are here to support you and are just really glad that you took the time to be here. So without further ado, I want to pass the mic over to our wonderful presenters, Debbie and Corie. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy. And we are so grateful to be here for this special time today. And, you know, a big special thank you to Amy for inviting us to spend this time with all of you. As Amy said, I'm Corie.
And I'm Debbie.
Debbie here. And we have a program called Mindfully Empowered, where we teach mindfulness to schools, educators, kids, businesses, and organizations. So we'd like to start our time to just arrive with a brief mindful listening practice. So in order to do this, we invite you to get comfortable wherever you are. If it feels comfortable and all right, to close your eyes or gaze down towards the floor. Just settle in wherever you are. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ring our bell, and we invite you to listen to the sound as long as you can. And when the sound is no longer there for you, you can go ahead and open your eyes. Okay, we're all arrived. I always think that's a tricky one when I have my AirPods in. Like, I don't know how close or far to hold it away. So as we know, these are very difficult and challenging times. Most schools are closed. Parents are trying to make that difficult decision whether to send their kids back to school or daycare to keep them home. Many people are working from home. We're feeling isolated from our friends and our loved ones. And like many of you, we're also feeling this anxiety and stress that comes with this very uncertain time. And also, like many of you, we are trying really hard to stay positive and to create this new normal for ourselves and our families. And now more than ever, Debbie and I are so grateful for our mindfulness practice. It helps keep us grounded in the present moment. It helps us negotiate and navigate and manage the anxiety and the stress that comes with this time. And as well as it helps us find some joy and gratitude, even in all of this uncertainty. So in our brief time today, we will be offering a variety of mindfulness tools and practices. We recognize that everybody learns differently. So what we invite you to do is just notice which of the practices really resonate with you. All of these practices are practices that can be incorporated easily into your daily life or into the life of your family, and can really help calm anxiety and build healthy coping mechanisms for this really challenging and difficult time, and also beyond. So really kind of seeing what fits for you as we go through our time together today.
So let's see, Corie, we have to do our next slide.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's okay. So looking at this image, and you can just kind of raise your hand, how many of you can relate to the image on the right? And how many can you relate a little bit more to the image on the left? Okay, most of us. So just wondering, how many of you have some familiarity with mindfulness, or are you new to mindfulness? So raise your hand if you have a little bit of familiarity with mindfulness. Okay, and how many is it just brand new? Okay, so everybody here who's present has some familiarity with it. So we just thought that we would begin by taking a few moments to share a definition of mindfulness so that we can have a shared understanding and definition as we move through our time together today. And we particularly love the definition of mindfulness put out by Jon Kabat-Zinn. So Jon Kabat-Zinn is who many consider to be the father of secular mindfulness, and who created the mindfulness-based stress reduction program. It's called MBSR, over 30 years ago. And Jon says that mindfulness is paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally. And we know that that is a lot to unpack. So we're going to be talking and teasing that out as we go through our time together. And really, here's the thing, so often we are either worrying about the future, which when you think about it, this is something we're all doing right now. So many of us are so worried about the future and this pandemic and what does this mean? What does this look like? So we're either worrying about the future, or we're ruminating over or rehashing something that already happened in the past. Raise your hand, how many of you can relate to this? Many of us relate to this. Yeah. And here's the thing, we live in this very busy world where multitasking and doing seem to have become so much more valued than simply being. And yet what we know is that this constant busyness is taking a toll. It's taking a toll on our physical health, our emotional health, and our relationships, especially the relationships that we have with our children and families, not to mention the relationship that we have with ourselves, right? So mindfulness is really about being aware of, even curious about whatever's happening in a given moment, because it's already happening. So it's about knowing and accepting what we're feeling when we're feeling it. So this includes not only emotions, but even just physical sensations, physical pain, for example, right? Knowing and understanding what we're feeling when we're feeling it, and knowing and accepting what we're thinking when we're thinking it. And we do this without judgment. We really simply notice our thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations, really with a sense of kindness and curiosity. And really practicing mindfulness and developing the self-awareness really helps us to learn how to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting out of anger, fear, impatience, frustration when challenges show up. And we know that challenges are always going to show up, right? So I just invite you to think about that for a moment, right? Think about how this idea of responding thoughtfully instead of reacting could be helpful in your life. Think about how that might be helpful in your parenting, or at work, or in a difficult relationship, right? So what we know is that learning how to respond instead of react offers such a powerful shift in our thinking and how we choose to show up, right? In our relationship to others, as well as our relationship to ourselves. And really, it's such a profound benefit of a mindfulness practice. So we like to share and talk a bit about that, which we'll look at throughout the afternoon.
So in mindfulness, we often start by talking about our breath. And this is for a very good reason. We breathe all day, every day, but we don't really often take the time to really think about it. We just do it automatically, which is thank goodness, because with all we have on our to-do list, we might forget to breathe, right? So thank goodness our bodies know how to do it. Yet the thing is, we often don't pay attention to the profound and extraordinary power our breath has to help us with our physical well-being and our mental well-being. So with this in mind, we'd like to introduce you to 3 different breathing practices. And these are particularly helpful and grounding in times of anxiety and stress and overwhelm. And each of these practices are also great practices that you can do with your family and your children. So they're really accessible. So I'm going to invite you to try these on with me. So the first practice is called 4-4-8 breathing. This is where we practice inhaling for a count of 4, holding for a count of 4, and then exhaling for a count of 8. Research shows us that when our exhale is longer than our inhale, it helps to calm our bodies faster and for a longer extended period of time. So I'm going to do the counting for you for this. So I'm going to invite you to just take a really deep breath. And in order to be able to breathe out for a count of 8, we've got to really take that nice, big, deep belly breath. Okay, so we're going to breathe in for a count of 8, hold it for a count of 8, and count of 4, and then breathe out for a count of 8. So ready? In, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So this is a beautiful practice to do when you have a lot of anxiety or you're feeling kind of ramped up with that feeling of overwhelm or stress. It's also a really great practice to do when you're having trouble falling asleep. The counting becomes almost a mantra that can help us focus and ground our thoughts. If 4-4-8 feels too long or feels too much, practice with it. You know, you can try 3-3-6 or even 2-2-4 and work up, but just really making that exhale nice and long and slow. So the next practice is a really simple practice where we put one hand on our chest and give ourselves a little bit of pressure and one hand on our belly. And we just take a nice big deep breath. And we feel our chest rise and our belly rise and then slowly out. And when we take our breath, we try to breathe in through our nose and then out through our mouth. So let's try it again. This is a beautiful practice when you really feel like you need some soothing. This is one that I do when I'm feeling really, really overwhelmed with anxiety. It's just a natural way to kind of give ourselves some love and some pressure on those emotional centers of our body. The last one we're going to talk about today is fingertip breathing. So in this practice, we practice touching our thumb to each of our fingers, and each time we take a nice deep breath in and a deep breath out. So let's just do that. We're going to take 4 deep breaths then. So go. Out. The next finger in. Out. Next finger in. Out. Last finger in. Out. Fingertip breathing can be so grounding. So, you know, when you're feeling like you're just being pulled in all different directions or you don't even know what you're thinking or feeling, it can be a really beautiful way to just ground yourself. This is a great practice to teach to kids too, because they can do it anywhere. You know, our big kids can even do it under their desk before a test or before a game or a performance. Our little kids like to do it. It's very tactile. So it's a great practice to also do with kids. So what did you notice when you were taking those breaths? Just kind of thinking about, you know, which breath felt most comforting for you at this time? Which one felt right at this time? And knowing that it can change. That's why we have so many beautiful different practices. Finding the one that fits at that particular time can be really, really helpful.
So, go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say one more thing that I forgot to say is Debbie and I find it really helpful to set alarms or reminders, physical alarms and reminders to breathe. So you can set it on your watch or your Alexa or on your phone, 3 or 4 times a day to just remind you to stop and take a couple deep breaths. And that oxygen and that grounding breath can be really helpful to carry you out through the rest of the day.
And I see on our slide, we have hand on heart and hand on chest. So we will fix that so that we have it on. Yes, so that we can do this.
Be really grounding too.
Definitely do that. Or yes, what other? So I just noticed that. Anyway, so we'd like to just switch gears a bit and talk about something that you may not really think about when you think of mindfulness, and that is gratitude. So did you know that research has shown that experiencing and expressing gratitude has actually been shown to raise our happiness levels? Isn't that incredible? Corie and I think it is just so amazing that people actually study this for a living. I think I want that job one day because I just think that's incredible. And did you know that you can't have feelings of anxiety, of gratitude and anxiety, for example, simultaneously? So choosing to focus on what we're grateful for has profound effects on our physical and emotional well-being, and is particularly helpful in times of uncertainty and transition, which is what we're talking about today. So we just invite you now to just take a few moments to just simply think about some things in your life for which you feel grateful. These could be people in your life, these could be objects, these could be experiences, something in nature. Just taking a few minutes to just close your eyes if that feels comfortable, or just look downward in front of you and just bringing to mind things for which you feel grateful. Taking a moment to do that. And if you want to write them in the chat, that's fine. If you want to just hold them in your mind and your heart, that's fine. If you want to unmute yourself and share, that's fine too, whatever feels most comfortable to you. So I just wanted to ask, what did you notice? Like, even just taking these few moments to think about what you're grateful for, what did you notice? What emotions did you notice? What, if any, physical sensations did you notice? Anyone want to share what came up just as they intentionally practice gratitude? I know for me, when I do this practice, I get like this warm feeling in my heart, right? It's like a soothing feeling, just like kind of this warmth in my heart. So, practicing gratitude in this way is something that really can be done daily. So for example, we invite you to consider thinking about 3 things for which you feel grateful. First thing when you wake up in the morning, or before going to bed at night. And if you have time, we invite you to write them down. We absolutely love gratitude journals. I'm assuming that some of you are somewhat familiar or have heard of a gratitude journal, where it's a place to actually record what you feel grateful for. And if journaling or writing doesn't work for you, you can just simply hold them in your mind. And doing this really helps set the tone for the rest of the day, and has even been shown to help us sleep better at night. Okay, so that's a gratitude practice. And practicing gratitude is also a beautiful thing to do with your family. And one way to do this, there are many ways to practice gratitude, and the practice that Corie and I particularly love is the gratitude jar practice. So for those of you who may not be familiar with it, this is where you have a jar similar to a mason jar. You have some strips of paper and a pen next to the jar. You take some time to introduce what gratitude means, and it's so different for everybody and depending on the age of your children, but just talking about this concept and idea of gratitude. And then you invite everybody to write down, when somebody feels a moment of gratitude, or when they think of something that they're grateful for, simply writing it down on the strip of paper and putting it in the jar. Little ones can tell you what they're grateful for, and you can write it down for them. And then it's just, as I said, a wonderful thing to do at the end of the day or the end of the week, whether it be at mealtime or even before bedtime, to go through and just sort of reflect on what everybody had to share. And when you do this, it's really powerful to just, as you're reading, even just kind of doing a self-check, right? Doing some self-reflection and noticing what comes up, noticing what that feels like. Even inviting your children to notice, what did that feel like to think about something that you're grateful for, to share something that you're grateful for, right? To really tap into just the embodying of this particular emotion. So that is the practice of gratitude. Are there other, and we just wanted to take a moment to ask if anybody has any other sort of practices or ways to practice gratitude with your family that you found particularly helpful. We know that there's so many out there. Does anybody have any that they wanted to share, or any other ways that they like to practice? Anything come to mind?
Debbie, I'll share. Similar to the gratitude jar, my family before has done sort of a gratitude board, and we just use Post-it notes and we attach the thoughts to that board. And one of the powerful things about that is over time, you're just in a good way overwhelmed by all of the gratitude that's coming at you. And then when it's time to kind of change over the board, we keep those Post-its and we put them away in a special place and pull them out at times just to remind ourselves of what that time was about, or what we found, most meaningful for ourselves at that time.
Oh, so. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Amy. It's such a visual.
Right.
It's such a visual to be able to see that. Oh, thank you for sharing that.
Pleasure. I love that idea. Love being able to see that and see all the different ways that the different family members and people that have come into your home, right?
Let's see. Lonnie says, I have an app called Long Walks. It has helped me personally with journaling before I go to bed. There are simple prompts about gratitude, truths, oh, interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Long Walks.
I've never heard that.
What a fabulous name for an app. I love that. Thank you for sharing. I'm definitely going to check that out. Long Walks.
I've not heard of that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's always nice when you have an app that's supportive in that way, for sure. So as we've been discussing, mindfulness is really about being in that present moment, right? Being right here, right now. And so speaking of being in the present moment, did you know that fully engaging our senses helps us give that part of our brain that's responsible for the anxiety and the stress and the worry and the sadness and overwhelm? It helps give that part of our brain a break. And it can be such a relief. So especially during these challenging times, when the only thing that's certain is that there's uncertainty. I don't know if you guys feel like that, but every day it's a new uncertainty. It can feel really scary, and we can find ourselves really ruminating and worrying about anything and everything. And it can get really exhausting. It can be really tiring. So when we find ourselves being overwhelmed by all of those thoughts and those feelings, one way to really reground ourselves in the present moment is to fully engage our senses. And this can look so many different ways. So some of the ways that we really like is, one way to engage our sound, our sense of sound, is to just sit and listen for 1 minute. Listen to the sounds without judgment, without even needing to label, just letting the sounds come and go. That can be really powerful. We can light a scented candle, our favorite scent, and we can bring it in and out, and just noticing what it smells like as it comes in and out. Again, without judgment, just noticing that smell. We can hold our warm mug of coffee or tea or whatever your drink of choice is, and just feel the ceramic mug in your hand. Feel what the drink feels like as you drink it. And just like I said, it doesn't have to be a long extended period of time. It can just be, a 1 minute, just a short time to really focus on that one scent. Another beautiful practice is to just stop and look around and just notice what's around you. Notice what's inside your house or out your window, and just label and just notice. So engaging our senses, like I said, can be really supportive in being more present and grounded. And it also helps us with gratitude, right? It helps us notice everything around us and so many beautiful things for which we can be grateful. So one practice that we really like that can be helpful in engaging our senses is the 5 senses practice. So I'm going to have you do this practice just where you're sitting right now. This practice can be done sitting in front of your computer like you are now. It can be done on a walk with your family. It can be done, even like when you're brushing your teeth. It can be done anywhere. So I'm going to invite you to just, again, find just a comfortable spot to settle in. I always like to take a couple deep breaths before any practice, just to remind me of where I am. Now start by noticing 5 things you see. You can look around and just noticing 5 things you see. They might be things you see easily and readily, or it might be something you hadn't noticed, a chip in the paint, or a spider outside your window. Now, switching gears to 4 things you hear. It's always an interesting one because so often we hear sounds that are there all the time that we just ignore, right? The sound of the fan or the air conditioning. Oops, I don't know why it keeps doing that. There we go. Now, 3 things you feel. 3 things you feel tactily. So maybe you feel your feet on the ground. You feel your hands on the table. Just noticing 3 things you feel. Now, 2 things you smell. Sometimes for this one, you got to take a couple deep breaths. Now, last is one emotion you feel. So one thing you feel in your heart right now. Remembering that it's not good or bad, it's just what's there. So without judgment, just noticing. Maybe take one more big deep breath. So thinking about a time that you might use this practice. I find I like to use this practice with my little one. He's 8, and when he's feeling really overwhelmed, he and I can go on a walk and he can just practice noticing. My oldest one, who's in high school, she uses this when she's really overwhelmed with schoolwork and feeling really anxious. It's a great way to ground her. It's a great way that she has found to really bring her back to the present moment. So just thinking about times when either you or your family might be able to use a practice like this.
This also makes me think about, Amy and I have talked about just at the museum, right? When just when a child is maybe overwhelmed, whether it's your child or a child that you know, and being able to help ground by just simply saying, oh, can you show me 5 things that you can see or 2 things that you can hear, right? It's just a way to kind of, as Corie said, really reground, recenter.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
So, as we've been discussing today, during this pandemic and time of transition, many of us are feeling just so overwhelmed and anxious and, even scared. There's a lot of fear there, just with so many big decisions surrounding us, that uncertainty that Corie, what we've been talking about today. And, the thing is, what we know is that whatever we resist persists. In other words, the more that we try to avoid or suppress what it is that we're feeling or experiencing, the more overwhelmed we actually can become, right? Oftentimes without even knowing why. Can anyone relate to this? Okay. So, getting comfortable with our emotions has been shown to build resiliency and connection, and is an important part of mindful awareness. So how do we manage all of this? So there's a popular mindfulness practice for investigating and managing emotions, which is known as RAIN. And RAIN can support us in being with our emotions mindfully. And I'd like to walk you through this last practice of our time together today. So to do this, I invite you to take a moment, if it feels comfortable for you to close your eyes. Again, if that doesn't feel comfortable, if you simply want to gaze down at the floor in front of you. And just taking a few slow, deep, cleansing breaths. Breathing in, breathing out. Seeing if you can bring to mind a difficult or frustrating time you recently had. Maybe a challenging time with your child, something at work, a disagreement with a family member. Seeing if you can bring the situation to mind as vividly as you can, paying particular attention to the feelings that you had or even that come up for you now as you recall this interaction. Taking another slow, deep breath in and out. And when you feel ready, go ahead and open your eyes. Does everybody have a situation in mind that brought up some strong feelings? Everybody has something to hold in mind? Okay. So with this particular situation in mind, we're going to take a walk through the rain. So this is something that you can do. If you happen to have a piece of paper and pen nearby, you're welcome to write this down. We invite you to write the letters R-A-I-N down the left side of your paper. If you want to just do this as we go along, that's perfectly fine too. Whatever works best for you. And we're going to start with R. The first step in the practice of RAIN is R, which stands for recognize. So kind of holding that situation in mind. And this step is where we name or label the emotion that we're having. So Dr. Dan Siegel, a psychiatrist out of UCLA, calls this name it to tame it. So this might sound something like, oh, this is anxiety, or oh, there's anger here. All right, so simply just seeing if you can name, label the emotion that you're experiencing. And what we know is that acknowledging our emotions tend to lessen their intensity. The second step in RAIN is A, which stands for allow and accept. So we don't necessarily have to like this particular feeling. We don't have to like feeling anxious. We don't have to like feeling angry or frustrated or upset or stressed or whatever the emotion is. The thing is, it's already here. So in this step, this is where we allow the feeling to be there. We embrace it, right? We let go of any resistance that we have trying to push it away. So Corie and I always talk about how we really truly envision taking a chair and pulling it up next to us, imagining that our emotion is sitting in that chair and welcoming it and saying, okay, you know, for me, I'll use anxiety. So, oh, hi, anxiety. I see you. You're back. Okay. What do you have to tell me this time? Right? So really just welcoming and embracing your emotion. We have a meditation teacher who would always say, invite your emotion for a cup of tea, right? So really just being able to allow it. The next step in RAIN is I, which stands for investigate. So this step really involves getting curious about the emotion. Where does it come from? You know, often it's an old feeling from our past. Oftentimes it can also be driven by fear. And this is a step where we really investigate how it's affecting our body. You know, many of us tend to hold our stress in our bodies, right? We might feel that tightening in our chest. We might feel that tension or tightness in our jaw, right? So even just noticing where in my body am I feeling this, right? And in this step is where we actually ask ourselves, you know, what do I need right now? And think about that for a moment. How often is it as busy parents, right? Busy professionals, busy parents, busy moms, busy dads, that we ever stop and ask ourselves, how do I feel and what do I need right now? Right? And it might be that we need to say, you know, gosh, what I need right now is just to release my jaw. Or maybe I just need to take a breath. Or maybe I need to step outside for a minute. Right? Or maybe I need to focus on something in nature, or ground myself, do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 practice. Right? So that's really the step of investigating, what do I need right now? The last step in RAIN is N, which stands for non-identify and nurture. And in this step, we avoid over-personalizing the emotion, right? We're not our emotion. It's just a reaction. So we always talk about emotions being like the weather. They come and they go. We talk about emotions being like these big waves. They rise and then they fall, right? So again, this is where we really are able to step outside and watch our emotion almost like an observer. And I just want to give you an example of what I mean by this. So just indulge me for a moment. And if it feels comfortable, I'm just going to invite you to close your eyes once again. And I'm going to say 2 different phrases. And as I say these 2 phrases, I just want you to notice, really paying attention to what, if any, physical sensations you feel in your body, what, if any, thoughts or emotions you notice as I say these 2 phrases. Okay, so the first phrase is, I'm so angry. I'm so angry. Again, just noticing what shows up for you. If you feel any physical sensations in your body, any thoughts going through your mind, emotions. Now the second phrase, there's a lot of anger here. There's a lot of anger here. Again, noticing any sensations, thoughts, emotions you may be experiencing. And when you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. Did anyone notice anything? If so, say, you can unmute or say in the chat, what did you notice with these 2 different phrases? Anyone notice any differences between the 2? Yeah? Yeah. Karen, did you want to say something? Oh, let's see.
Sure.
Okay.
With the first one, I sort of envisioned that it was inside me, like this anger thing was there.
Mm-hmm.
But with the second one, it seemed like it was around me, like not inside. That was the vision that came for me. So instead of being inside me, it was around me.
Yeah, it was around you. Thank you so much. Yeah, so this is a really interesting way of looking at it, right? About creating that space, right? And it makes me think, you know, going back to what we were talking about earlier, that space, right? Getting space from our emotion is one way in which we are able to then respond thoughtfully instead of react, right? But we need to have that space in there. So that reminds me of that. So in this step is also where we practice, the N is for nurture, which is really about self-compassion, right? Nurturing ourselves, thinking about any words of comfort that you can offer yourself. You know, I'm a big fan of mantras. So, you know, being able to tell yourself in these difficult times or when you're feeling really overwhelmed with emotions, and this step is where you would tell yourself something such as, I can handle this, or I can do hard things, or we will get through this, or everything will work out one way or another. You know, whatever brings you a sense of comfort and compassion for the difficulty that you're going through. And this is a practice that Corie and I do on a daily basis. Oftentimes we'll even call each other and walk each other through rain or say, did you do rain today? Right? We really like to remind each other of that. And, you know, especially when we're feeling challenged. And this is also a beautiful practice to introduce to your children when you feel that they're ready. Corie and I do teach this practice to kids. We modify it a little bit, but it's such an interesting and beautiful way, especially with young ones, to be able to teach them this art of self-reflection. So thinking about when your kiddos might be ready for that.
Okay, so before we end our time together or move into our question and answer portion of our time together, I invite you to close your eyes just one more time. If that doesn't feel right, find that gaze downward. Taking a couple deep breaths, slowly breathing in and letting it out. Thinking about what we've explored together today, including taking the time to breathe, expressing gratitude, fully engaging our senses intentionally, and the rain practice. Reflecting on anything that you would like to bring into your life to support you now, during this time, and beyond. Offering yourself gratitude and appreciation for taking this time for yourself and for being here today. Keeping in mind that you are not alone on this journey, being kind to yourself. Consider each moment a gift and an opportunity to practice and connect with the wisdom, patience, and compassion that is already in and around you. Taking another deep breath in, gently letting it out, and opening your eyes when you're ready. So we really want to thank you so much for being here with us today and for your openness and commitment to yourself and for sharing this time with us. And we are so grateful to be able to share this time with you and for you having us into your space. And now we are able to take any questions.
I have a question. With gratitude, I found sometimes working with kids, when you start with gratitude, they start with things like, I'm grateful for my phone, or I'm grateful for my new pair of tennis shoes. So is that okay to start like that? And how do you kind of move them from that?
Corie, you want to take that?
Sure. I'll say what I think, and then you can tell me if you want to add on. I think gratitude is a personal practice, and I think if a child is grateful for their phone, then they're grateful for their phone, and if they're grateful for their shoes, then they're grateful for their shoes. And I think also what Debbie and I talk about when we talk about gratitude with kids is we talk about it's not always the big obvious things. So it's not always my house or my family. And yes, we are grateful for those, and that is part of who we are and the fabric of who we are, but it can also be the day-to-day things. So I am also grateful for, that I have enough water today. I just saw my water bottle. I'm also grateful for, that my mom cooked my favorite meal because she knew I would really like it. Mm-hmm. And so I think it is that practice, and it's that practice of finding gratitude in everyday life, and that we can find gratitude all over the place. And I find that with kids, especially, having some sort of daily gratitude practice, two of my children do a gratitude journal, having the gratitude jar in our family room. They'll just sit down before they watch a show and they'll write something. And then when we go through it, it's really cool to see what they were grateful for. So I guess that's my long way of saying, yes, of course, whatever they're grateful for is okay. And also providing ample opportunity and practice for finding gratitude.
Cool. And I would just say, I think our kids really learn from our modeling and what we embody. So when we're sharing what we feel grateful for and offering different examples of things, I think that's how they take that in. And it's funny because when you gave the example of the phone, and kind of one of the first thoughts that came to mind is, well, yes, that's what helps you feel connected. Right? Think about what a phone represents, right? It's a form of communication, it's a form of connection. And so even, being able to explore that, kind of takes us down. But I think it's wherever that child is, and that it's really, we all start somewhere. Right? Yeah.
Do you ever talk about why do you feel grateful for that? Or like you just brought that up, like a kid could say, yeah, I'm grateful for my phone because I always feel like I'm close to you, or.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just, the feeling in the moment, if it's something that is worth exploring, or if it's something that we just want to allow the child to share and kind of then move on and see where it shows up again. So I think it's so in the moment making that thought. But yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I appreciate the earlier mention about learning how to respond versus reacting. I'm still learning how to pause, breathe, and communicate with intention while dealing with challenges at home. Yes, absolutely. We are too.
We're not alone.
We do this for a living, and we're still practicing. And the beautiful thing about mindfulness and why we call it a practice, it's something that we work on ongoing. So yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
And I want to say so much of mindfulness is that awareness. Right? That awareness of when we respond in a way that we wish we hadn't, or react in a way out of emotion. It's that awareness of saying, oh yeah, I didn't take that pause that time, and that's okay, because I'm a human and I have emotions and I have feelings, and maybe next time I'll try to take that pause. So really, that's the beautiful thing about mindfulness, is that just being aware of it.
And with that awareness, we can then choose what we want to do, right? In mindfulness, we talk so much about discernment, where we want to go from there. And so even knowing, now I have an opportunity to repair, right? I love, Chris Wooler talks about there's a connection, a tear, and a repair. So we always have that. We're always in choice about then how we want to handle ourselves next when, as Corie said, when we're having that and in that awareness. Other questions anybody has for us?
Well, Debbie and Corie, I don't have as much of a question, but just a comment. I just wanted to share, well, first of all, that I am an educator. I'm also a parent of 2 little ones under the age of 4. And within these challenging times, my 3.5-year-old and I in particular have just both had moments of, I would just say, feeling out of control emotionally. And sometimes those moments happen at the same time and for similar reasons. And one of the things I really appreciate about what you shared today and some of the exercises that you took us through are, I think before this, I would think about how can I calm myself or how can I help him calm down. But now I feel like I have ideas for what we can do together. And the walk, the 5 senses exploration, and the, Corie, you mentioned taking your 8-year-old on a walk, just made me realize, well, that's something I think we could so easily do together in that moment, my 3.5-year-old and I, and we could take turns, sharing what we're observing and at the same time finding that calm together. And so I just really appreciate that because it's a connection I hadn't made previously. So I really appreciate your sharing what you did today and giving me some great tools for continuing to just kind of work through these tricky times that we're all in right now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, Corie and I, we always talk about, that we practice mindfulness in moments of calm so that we have access to them in those moments where we're more challenged, right? Yeah. So thank
It's
you.
like going to the gym for your mindfulness, for your brain, so that when you really need it, it's strengthened.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments that anyone has?
I just wanted to share how helpful Liz was. So recently I've been talking to a lot of people and had made gratitude the first thing that I start my day with, but it's a constant, I have a constant need to remind myself. And so I have a daily notebook I keep for work, and like every day I write out, if I haven't done it already, gratitude, and then just kind of jot some notes down. And it really does shift things. I don't know if Amy, you feel that way, but I am trying, and because it's just much easier to jump to like work and try and like get things done, and and it often doesn't feel good, I think, on the receiving end, and I can say that because I am, I impact Amy and Lonnie, but I am also impacted by my colleagues and then of course my boss. And so, knowing what makes me feel, I'm trying not to do that, try and slow down, but then there are these moments where I'm like, So I think this was a really great reminder. Amy, you can hold me to it. And then I loved all of the exercises, RAIN, like really thinking through and understanding, why we're feeling a certain way. I think that was really great. So thank you. And then the 5 senses practice, a super concrete way to just like slow down in the middle of the day. And so then I think, and the breathing exercises are really great. I mean, I feel, I didn't know, like I thought today was great, like, and today is a good day, nothing too, difficult. But after the breathing exercises, I feel so much better, more calm. And so thank you. This was incredible. Yeah, and I know not a lot of people could join us live, but this is definitely a segment that I think will get a lot of views, and we're certainly going to push it out to our audiences. Yeah. And not just caregivers, but our colleagues.
It's for everybody, right? Everybody.
And we always say, exactly what you're saying to Amy, it's so great to have a buddy, to have an accountability buddy because sometimes we're so overwhelmed that we forget, right? So if you can have, like Debbie and I do this for each other all the time, remind each other, okay, just breathe, right? Or, exactly. Did you try rain? Do you need support with that? And it's so helpful because we, just like with anything, we need a community, right? It's strength in numbers. We're better when other people can be there with us along on the journey.
Yeah.
Especially now when we're really all in this together. I mean, everybody's situations certainly look different and feel different, and yet we're all going through this in our own way. And so just that collective experience, I think, is so important to remember that we're not alone.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, we just want to invite, thank you all again for spending this time with us. And we really just invite you to stay in touch, to stay connected. Corie and I now offer a lot of virtual training. So we do this for parent groups. We do this for private groups. We do this for business organizations. We could do this for, small groups of kiddos. It's sometimes a little trickier for them, but we're open. So anyway, we really now, especially with the situation that we're in right now, can virtually be anywhere. So we just really invite you to stay in touch. We listed here our email and our website and our phone number, and we're only just an email or phone call away. So we just want to wish everybody the best. We want to wish all you and your families just continued health, continued safety, continued comfort during this really difficult time. And again, as we said, please know that you're not alone. We're here if anybody would like to reach out.